Josh Turner has one of those voices that doesn't just fill a room. It seems to come up through the floor. Deep, unhurried, and unmistakably real. But the story behind that voice is far more complicated, and far more human, than most people ever get to hear. He grew up in Hannah, South Carolina, a small, quiet town where church was the center of everything, and faith wasn't something you practiced once a week. It was how you breathed. Born on November 26, 1977, Josh was the youngest of 3 brothers, raised by parents who believed that hard work and gratitude for God-given gifts were non-negotiable. His earliest musical memory wasn't a concert or a music video. It was his great-grandfather playing old gospel records in the living room, that warm, crackling sound that somehow said everything words couldn't. He started singing in church at 8 years old, not to perform, but because something inside him demanded an outlet. And when puberty hit, instead of the usual awkward vocal cracking that most teenage boys endure, Josh's voice simply dropped, way down, into a register so low that it literally made window panes vibrate. By 17, people in his community were talking about it like a force of nature. He eventually made his way to Nashville, studying at Belmont University, and it was there that a documentary about a folk musician sparked an image in his mind. A dark train carrying people toward destruction, and the choice whether to board it or let it pass. That image became Long Black Train. When he performed it at a college showcase, industry executives in the audience sat in stunned silence. He walked out with a record deal. The song hit radio in 2003 and climbed to number 8 on the charts. Programmers had warned it was too dark, too traditional, too low. The listeners proved them wrong, calling stations relentlessly to request it. His debut album went double platinum. In August 2004, at just 26 years old, he was inducted into the Grand Ole Opry, one of the youngest artists ever to receive that honor. Your Man followed in 2006, sitting at number 1 for 5 consecutive weeks. But none of that came without cost. 2 years before any of that success, in 2001, Josh collapsed in Nashville at 23. Doctors diagnosed a severe hemorrhagic vocal cord lesion, essentially a vascular rupture in the very tissue his entire future depended on. Surgery was necessary, and recovery meant weeks of enforced total silence. No singing, no humming, not even a whisper. For a young man whose identity was built entirely around his voice, that silence was its own kind of crisis. He later described genuinely not knowing who he was without it. Miraculously, his voice returned intact. Years of relentless touring then took a separate toll. Chronic fatigue, migraines, and physical exhaustion that he largely kept to himself, pushing through out of sheer Southern stubbornness. Then in 2014, a woman named Jennifer Foster filed a lawsuit against him, alleging sexual misconduct. It was a serious public blow for an artist whose entire brand was built on faith and family values. Josh firmly denied the allegations, and his legal team addressed the matter in court. The case was eventually resolved, though the emotional weight of it left its mark. What remains, after all of it, is a man still standing, still singing the same kind of music he grew up with, still rooted in the same faith that carried him through the silence. If this story moved you, give it a like and subscribe for more untold chapters from country music's most compelling lives.